Percocet, yeah. Mala Percocet, yeah. Take a shit. Now chase a bitch. Chase a chick. Now chase a bitch. Chapter 18. When she was acquainted with Barney by now. Well acquainted, it seemed, though she had spoken to him only a few times. But then she had felt just as well acquainted with him the first time they had met. She had been in the garden at twilight, hunting for a few stalks of white narcissus for Sissy's room, when she heard that terrible old grey slogan coming down through the woods from Miss Toys. One could hear it miles away. Whereas it did not look up as it drew near, thumping over the rocks in that crazy lane. She had never looked up, though Barney had gone racketing past every evening since she had been at Roaring Eagles. This time, he did not racket past. The old grey slogan stopped with even more terrible noises that it made going. Whereas he was conscious that Bonnie had sprung from it and was leaning over the ramshackle gate. Leaning, pardon me, leaning over the ramshackle gate. She suddenly straightened up and looked up into his face. Their eyes met. Wallace was suddenly conscious of a delicious weakness. Was one of her heart attacks coming on? But this was a new symptom. His eyes, which she had always thought brown, now seemed close, were deep violet, translucent, and intense. Neither of his eyebrows looked like the other. He was thin, too thin. She wished she could feed him up a bit. She wished she could sew the burns on his coat and make him cut his hair and shave every day. There was something in his face. One hardly knew what it was. Tiredness, sadness, disillusionment. He had dimples in his thin cheeks when he smiled. All these thoughts flashed through Valence's mind in that one moment while his eyes looked into hers. Good evening, Miss Starling. And who is that man? Bonnie. Good evening, Miss Starling. Good evening, Miss Starling. Nothing could be more commonplace and conventional. Anyone might have said it. But Barney Snaith had a way of saying things that gave him high wings. When he said good evening, you felt that it was a good evening and that it was partly his doing that it was. You felt that some of the credit was yours, whereas you felt all this vaguely, but she couldn't imagine why she was trembling from head to foot. It must be her heart. If only he didn't notice it. I'm going over to the port, Bonnie was saying. Can I acquire merit by getting or doing anything there for his sissy? Oh, you are sissy. Well, will you add some salt goldfish for us? Said Valence. It was the only thing she could think of. Roaring Abel had expressed a desire that day for a dinner of boiled salt goldfish. When her knights came riding to the Blue Castle, Valency had sent them on many a quest, but she had never asked any of them to get her salt goldfish. Suddenly, you sure there's nothing else? Lots of room in Lady Jane Grey's closet. And she always gets back sometime, this Lady Jane. I don't think there's anything more, said Valency. She knew he would bring oranges for Sissy anyhow. He always did. Barney did not turn away at once. He was silent for a little. Then he said, slowly and whimsically, Miss Sterling, you're a brick. You are a whole cartload of bricks. So come here and look after Sissy under the circumstances. There's nothing so big about that. Said Valency. I had nothing else to do. I had nothing else to do. And I like it here. I don't feel as if I'd done anything meritorious. Mr. Gay is paying me fair wages. I never earned any money before, and I like it. Oh, pardon me. It seemed so easy to talk to Barney Snaith. Some way this terrible Barney Snaith of the lurid tales and mysterious past, as easy and natural as if talking to herself. All the money in the world couldn't buy what you're doing for Sissy Gay, said Barney. Okay, Sissy Gay's man. It's a new fact, man. It's splendid and fine of you. And if there's anything I can do to help you in any way, you have only to let me know. If Roaring Abel ever tries to annoy you, he doesn't. He's lovely to me. I like Roaring Abel, said Valency frankly. So do I. But there's one stage of his drunkenness. Perhaps you haven't encountered yet, when he sings ribald songs. Oh yes, he came home last night like that. Susie and I just went to our room and shut ourselves in where we couldn't hear him. He apologized this morning. I'm not afraid of any of Roaring Abel's stages. Well, I'm sure he will be decent to you, apart from his inebriated yaws, said Bonnie. And I told him he's got to stop ganning things when you're around. Why? Asked Wells slyly, with one of her odd, slanted glances and, and a sudden flake of pink on each cheek. Bonnie thought that Barney had actually done so much for her. I often feel like jamming things myself. For a moment, Barney stared. Was this elfin girl the little, old maidish creature who had stood there 2 minutes ago? Surely there was a magic and devilry going on in that shabby, weedy old garden. Then he left. It will be a relief to have someone to do it for you. Then. For you then. So you don't want anything but salt crawfish. Not tonight. But I dare say I'll have some errands for you. Very often when you go to Port Lawrence. I can trust Mr. Gay to remember to bring all the things I want. Barney had gone away. Then, in his Lady Jane and Valency stood in the garden for a long time. Since, since then, he had called several times, walking down through the barrens whistling. How that whistle of his echoed through the spruces of those June twilights. Valency caught herself listening for it every evening, rebuked herself, then let herself go. Why shouldn't she listen for it? He always brought Sissy fruit and flowers. Once he brought Valency a box of candy. The first box of candy she had ever been given. It seemed sacrilege to eat it. She found herself thinking of him in season and out of season. She wanted to know if he ever thought about her when she wasn't before his eyes, and if so, what? She wanted to see that mysterious house of his back on the mysterious island. Sissy had never seen it. Sissy, though she talked freely of Barney and had known him for 5 years, really little more of him than Valency herself. But he isn't bad, said Sissy. Nobody need ever tell me he is. He can't have done a thing to be ashamed of. Then why does he live as he does? Asked Valency, to hear somebody defend him. I don't know. He's a mystery. And of course, there's something behind it. But I know it isn't disgrace. Barney Snape simply couldn't do anything disgraceful, Valency. Valency was not sure. Barney must have done something sometime. He was a man of education and intelligence. She had soon discovered that in listening to his conversations and wrangles with Rowan Evil, who was surprisingly well read and could discuss any subject under the sun when sober. Such a man wouldn't bury himself for 5 years in Moscow and live and look like a tramp if there were not too good or bad a reason for it. But it didn't matter. All that mattered was that she was sure now that he had never been Sissy Gay's lover. There was nothing like that between them. Though he was very fond of Sissy and she of him, as anyone could see. But it was a fondness that didn't worry Valency. You don't know what Barney has been to me these past 2 years. Sissy had said simply. Everything would have been unbearable without him. Sissy Gay is the sweetest girl I ever knew. And there's a man somewhere I'd like to shoot if I could find him. Barney had said savagely. Barney was an interesting talker with a knack of telling a great deal about his adventures and nothing at all about himself. There was one glorious rainy day when Barney and Abel swept yarns all the afternoon while Valency mended tablecloths and listened. Barney told weird tales of his adventures with shags on trains while hoboing it across the continent. Valency thought she ought to think his stealing rights quite dreadful, but didn't. The story of his working his way to England on a cattle ship sounded more legitimate, and his yarns of the Yukon enthralled her, especially the one of the night he was lost on the divide between Gold Run and Sulphur Valley. He had spent 2 years out there, wherein all this was there for room. There room for the pedantry and the other things. If you were telling the truth, well as he knew he was. Found no goat, he said. Came away poorer than when I went. But such a place to live. Those silences at the back of the Northwell got me. I've never belonged to myself since. Yet he was not a great talker. He told a great deal in a few well chosen words. How well chosen Valens did not realize. And he had a knack of saying things without opening his mouth at all. I like a man whose eyes say more than his lips, said Valens. Thought Valency, anyway. But then she liked everything about him. His tawny hair, his whimsical smiles, the loyal little glints of fun in his eyes, his loyal affection for that unspeakable Lady Jane, his habits of sitting with hands in his pockets, his chin sunk on his breast, Looking up from under his mismated eyebrows, she liked his nice voice, which sounded as if it might become caressing or whined with every little provocation. She was at times almost afraid to let herself think these thoughts. They were so vivid that she felt as if the others must know what she was thinking. I've been watching a woodpecker all day. He sat one evening on the shaky old back veranda. His account of the woodpecker's doing was satisfying. He had often some gay or cunning little anecdote of the woodcock to tell them, and sometimes he and Roaring Abel smoked furiously the whole evening and never said a word, while Cesare lay in the hammock swung between the veranda posts, and Valency sat idly on the steps, her hands clasped over her knees, and wondered dreamily if she were really Valency's darling, and if it were only 3 weeks since she had left the ugly old house in the Elm Street. The bed lay her in a white moon splendor with dozens of little rabbits frisked. Barney, when he liked, could sit down on the edge of the barrens and lure those rabbits right to him by some mysterious sorcery he possessed. Valency had once seen a squirrel leap from his scrub vine to his shoulder and sit there chattering to him. It reminded her of John Foster. It was one of the delights of Valency's new life that she could read John Foster's books as often and as long as she liked. Okay, 20 seconds, wait right here. She could read them in bed if she wanted to. She read them all to Cesare, who loved them. She also tried to read them to Abel and Barney, who did not love them. Abel was bored, and Barney politely refused to listen at all. Paper, said Barney. Chapter 19. Of course, the Starlings had not left the poor maniac alone all this time, or refrained from the heroic efforts to rescue her perishing soul or reputation. Uncle James, whose lawyer had helped him as well as his doctor, came one day, find Valency alone in the kitchen, as he supposed, gave her a terrible talking, told her she was breaking her mother's heart and disgracing her family. Why? Said Valency, not ceasing to scour her porridge pot decently. I'm doing honest work for honest pay. What is there in that is disgraceful? Don't quibble, Valency, said Uncle James solemnly. This is no fit place for you to be, and you know it. Why? I'm told that jailbird snake is hanging around here every evening. Not every evening, said Valency, reflectively. No, not quite every evening. It's unsufferable, said Uncle James violently. Valency, you must come home. We won't judge you harshly. I assure you we won't. We will overlook all this. Thank you, said Valency. Have you no sense of shame? Demanded Uncle James. Oh, yes, but the things I am ashamed of are not the things you are ashamed of. Valency proceeded to rinse her disclothes meticulously. Still was Uncle James patient. He gripped the sides of his chair and ground his teeth. We know your mind isn't just right. will make allowances, but you must come home. You shall not stay here with that drunken, blasphemous old founder. Were you by any chance referring to me, Mr. Stalling? Demanded Lord Raven, suddenly appearing in the doorway of the back veranda, where he had been smoking a peaceful pipe and listening to old Jim Stallings tirade with huge enjoyment. His red beard fairly bristled with indignation, and his huge eyebrows quivered. But cowardice was not among James Stallings' shortcomings. I was, and furthermore, I want to tell you that you have acted an inquisitive part in luring this weak and unfortunate girl away from her home and friends, and I'll have you punished yet for it. James Stalling got no further. Roaring Abel crossed the kitchen and went, caught him by his collar and his trousers, and hurled him through the doorway and over the garden, paling with as little apparent effort as he might have employed in whisking a troublesome kitten out of the way. The next time you come back here, he bellowed, I'll throw you through the window. In all the better if the window is shut. Coming here, thinking yourself going to put the world to rights. Well, as she candidly and unshamedly owned to herself that she had seen few more satisfying sights than Uncle James's coat tails flying out into the asparagus bed. She had once been afraid of this man's judgment. Now she saw clearly that he was nothing but a rather stupid little village tinker. Roaring Abel turned with his great broad laugh. To think of that for years, when he wakes up in the night, the Almighty may make him. But wait. The Almighty made a mistake in making so many stallings. But since they are made, we've got to reckon with them. Too many to kill out. But if they come here bothering you, I'll shoot them off before a cat could lick its ear. The next time they send Dr. Stalling, surely Roaring Abel would not throw him into the asparagus beds. Dr. Stalling was not so sure of this and had no great liking for the task. He did not believe Valencia Stalling was out of her mind. She had always been queer. He, Dr. Stalling, had never been able to understand her. Therefore, beyond doubt, she was queer. She was only just a little queerer than usual now. And Dr. Stalling had his own reasons for disliking Roaring Abel. When Dr. Stalling had first come to Deerwood, he had a liking for long hikes around his choice and Muskota. On one of these occasions, he had got lost and after much wandering had fallen in with Roaring Abel with his gun over his shoulder. Dr. Stalling had contrived to ask his question in about the most idiotic manner possible. He said, Can you tell me where I'm going? How the devil should I know how you're going? Where you're going? Gosling retorted Abel contemptuously. Dr. Stalling was so engaged that he could not speak for a moment or two, and in that moment, Abel had disappeared in the woods. Dr. Stalling had eventually found his way home, but he had never hankered to encounter Abel again. Nevertheless, he came now to do his duty. Valence greeted me with a sinking heart. She had to own to herself that she was terribly afraid of Dr. Stalling's step. She had a miserable conviction that if she shook his long bony finger at her and told her to go home, she dared not disobey. Mr. Gay, hell, said Dr. Stalling politely and condescendingly. May I see Miss Stalling alone for a few minutes? Rodinger was a little drunk, just drunk enough to be excessively polite and very cunning. He had been on the point of going away when Dr. Stalling arrived, but now he sat down in the corner of the parlor and folded his arms. No, no, mister, he said solemnly. That wouldn't do. Wouldn't do at all. I've got the reputation of my household to keep up. I got to chaperone this young lady. Can't have my sparking going on here behind my back. Outraged Dr. Starling looked so terrible that Valency wondered how Abel could endure his aspect. But Abel was not worried at all. Do you know anything about it? Anyway, he asked genially. About what? Sparking, said Abel coldly. Poor Dr. Starling, who had never married because she believed in a celibate clergy, would not notice a ribald remark. This ribald remark. He turned his back on Abel and addressed himself to Valency. Mr. Allen, I'm here to respond to your mother's wishes. To respond to your mother's wishes. She begged me to come. I am charged with some messages from her. Will you? He raised his finger. Will you hear them? Yes, said Valency faintly, eyeing the forefinger. It had a hypnotic effect on her. The first is this: if you'll leave this house, interjected roaring Abel. HOUSA. Trouble with an impediment in your speech, ain't you, mister? This place and return to your home. Mr. James Starling will himself pay for a good nurse to come here and wait on Miss Gay. Back on her terror, Valency smiled in secret. Uncle James must indeed regard the matter as desperate when he would loosen his pure Starlings like that. At any rate, her clan no longer despised her to ignore her, or ignore her, that way. She had become important to them. That's my business, mister, said Abel. Miss Starling can go if she pleases, or stay if she pleases. I made a fair bargain with her, and she's free to conclude it when she likes. She gives me meals that stick to my ribs. She don't forget to put salt in the porridge. She never slams doors, and when she has nothing to say, she don't talk. That's uncanny in a woman. You know, mister, I'm satisfied. If she isn't, she's free to go. But no woman comes here in Jim Stalling's pay, if anyone does. Ava's voice was uncannily bland and polite. I'll spare the road with her brains. Tell him that with a gaze compliments. Dr. Stalin, a nurse, is not what she needs, said Valency honestly. She isn't so ill as that yet. What she wants is companionship. Somebody she knows and likes just to live with her. You can understand that, I'm sure. I understand that your motive is quite condemnable. Dr. Stalling felt that he was very broad-minded indeed, especially as in his secret soul he did not believe Valency's motive was commendable. He hadn't the least idea what she was up to, but he was sure her motive was not commendable. When he could not understand a thing, he straightway condemned it. Simplicity itself. But your first duty is your mother. She needs you. She implores you to come home. She'll forgive everything if you will come only home. If you only come home. There is a pretty little thought, remarked Abel meditatively as he ground some tobacco up in his hand. Dr. Stalling ignored him. She entreats, but Miss Stalling, Dr. Stalling remembered that he was an ambassador of Jehovah. I commend, as your pastor and spiritual guide, I commend you to home with me this very day. Get your hair and coat and come now. Dr. Stalling shook his finger at Valency. Before that pitiless finger, she drooped and wilted visibly. She's given in, thought roaring Abel. She'll go with him. Beats all. The power these creature fellows have over women. Valency was on the point of obeying Dr. Stalin. She must go home with him, and he gave up. She would lapse back to George Stalin again, and for her few remaining days or weeks to be cowed, futile creature she had always been. It was her fate, typified by that relentless, uplifted forefinger. She could no more escape from it than roaring Abel from his predestination. She eyed it as the fascinated bird eyes the snake. Another moment. Fear is the original sin, suddenly said a still, small voice away back of Valence's consciousness. Back of Valence's consciousness is the correct way to say that. Almost all the evil in the world has its origin in the fact that someone is afraid of something. Valence stood up. She was still in the clutches of fear, but her soul was her own again. She would not be false to that inner voice. Mr. Stalling, she said slowly, I do not at present owe any duty to my mother. She is quite well. She has all the assistance and companionship she requires. She does not need me at all. I'm needed here. I am going to stay here. There's prank for you, said Roaring Eagle admiringly. Dr. Stalin dropped his forefinger. One could not keep on shaking a forefinger. Forever. Miss Stalin, is there nothing that can influence you? Do you remember your childhood days? Probably. And I hate them. And hate them. Do you realize what people will say, what they are saying? I can imagine it, said Valency with a shrug of her shoulder. I can imagine it. I can imagine it. She was suddenly free of fear again. I haven't listened to the gossip of Deerwood tea parties and sewing circles 20 years for nothing. But, Dr. Stalin, it doesn't matter in the least to me what they say. Not in the least. Dr. Stalin went away then, a girl who cared nothing for public opinion, over whom sacred family ties had no restraining influence, who hated her childhood memories. Then cousin Georgiana came, on her own initiative, for nobody would have thought it worthwhile to send her. She found Valency alone, waiting the little vegetable garden she had planted. And she made all the platitudinous pleas she could think of. Valency heard her patiently. Cousin Georgiana wasn't such a bad old soul. Then she said, and now that you have got all that out of your system, Cousin Georgiana, can you tell me how to make creamed codfish so that it will not be as thick as porridge and as salt as the dead say? We'll just have to wait, said Uncle Benjamin. After all, Sissy Gay can't live long. Dr. Marsh tell me she may drop off any day. Mrs. Frederick wept. It would really have been so much easier to bear if Valency had died. She could have worn mourning then. Okay, gentlemen, it ends like this here. I'll try politely to take a leave here. And I would politely like to take a leave here. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for attention, man. Not patience. Thank you for attention.